Hey everybody, it's me, it's Undead Viking. I'm coming to you today to review a game that I'm really jazzed about. Just before hey, it's Relic. I remember when they announced Relic, Fantasy Flight Games did. I was like, and they said it's Talisman in the Warhammer 40k universe, and it even says that right there in the box. It's like based on the gameplay of Talisman, and I was like, yay, because Talisman was one of the games that I first started playing. That was a real board game. I started playing it back in I'm gonna say high school, I think. Which I graduated high school in 1990, so you go ahead and do the backwards math, if you will. So, and don't get me wrong, I love Talisman, and I've said that repeatedly. It isn't a game that treats the people that like it kindly. It's a game that you have a love-hate relationship with. But I really dig the game, and I've played it many, many times. But when they said we're going to do this revamped version of Talisman, I was like, whatever. And then I saw it at Gen Con last year. I saw it being demoed. And I looked at it, and I was just kind of like, okay, I'll check this out. And I was looking at it, and I was like, they didn't even try. Like, the board looked exactly... It was like they took... All right, take the Talisman board, and I want you to just make it black and add some space stuff to it. And then come back to me, and when you bring that, and then we'll sell it, and people will buy it because it's Talisman and it's Warhammer 40k. I mean, when I was in my my Warhammer stage, as far as the miniatures and everything go, I didn't even like the 40k stuff. I understand why people dig the Space Marines and what have you, but I played Warhammer fantasy miniatures, and that was my thing. That's what I liked, and so I mean, I guess, like I said, it was like it was a theme that I was kind of like, well, I mean, it's cool and all, I guess, but I mean, I wasn't all like, yeah, and it was a game that, like I said, I had a love-hate relationship, and as long as I had Talisman and I had that to play, I didn't really see the point in getting this. However, I don't know what happened. I was putting an order together for some board games. There was some stuff that I wanted, so I think I wanted to pick up some X-Wing miniatures and stuff like that. And it was just one of those weird things where this had just been released, and I was just like, fine, I mean, I own everything else Talisman related. I might as well just, get this too. And so I got it. And then my gaming group that is like huge Talisman fanatics, I told them about it, and my buddy Craig was like, Space Talisman, and he just kept on saying that in that tone of voice, Space Talisman, and like he just wanted to play it so bad, because he's the person that loves Talisman but hates it the most, if that makes sense. And so after wearing me down, I finally cracked open the shrink, and we played it. And I'll be honest with you, I was really, really impressed with the game. And they changed up a lot of the rules, and they made things tighter, if you will, and I really fell in love with this version. So, but I'm telling you exactly what I think, which no big deal. Hopefully you'll tune in for the conclusion. I'll tell you exactly why I dig it, and hopefully I'm going to show you how to play, and go through the changes that they've made, and then I'll tell you exactly why this version works for me. And then I will tell you, maybe, hopefully, why it might work for you. So, alright. So, Relic. Fantasy Flight Games. Space Talisman. Alright, here it is. This is the game board for Relic. Those of you who are familiar with Talisman are going to look at this board and they're going to say, well, this looks like a Talisman board. I mean, you have the big center in the middle where people are going to be heading. You have the 3 different rings that you have to move your characters through, and also the little spots that you're going to go to draw cards and what have you, and to encounter the board. And obviously there's spots that have, if you notice, these little dots here that will tell you what type of cards, of these 3 different threat cards that you can draw to tell you what you're going to experience. And there's also spaces on the board that have text on them that will tell you what to do if you land on them. Some of them have text, like, you know, this spot here has 2 separate boxes, and like as a player you get to pick which one you want to do when you land there. Once again, if you play Talisman, this shouldn't come as a big surprise to you. However, as I alluded to in the introduction, there are changes with this game that you don't really see in Talisman. Okay, well, it's a dice game. You got dice, of course. Unlike in Talisman, where each you had little figures or whatever, the figures are replaced with these like little busts, if you will. These are really highly detailed, actually, and I really like them. And so you get these little stands here, and then you just put the person on the bust like so, and then you go ahead and place the characters down. And so we'll just I'm just picking some here at random. I'm just kind of trying to set before, but sometimes they don't go in really well. But if you try really hard, and I got a cat, I do apologize. Let me get rid of this. So if you go ahead and you put the people down, let me just grab somebody else here. She's over there. And I'm going to show you the character sheets real quick here. When we played Talisman, we came up with lots of different methods to pick our characters. One of the methods that we do is actually the official one here, where you draw 2 and pick 1. So I'm just going to draw 2, and these are the character sheets, and you know, they have the picture of the people or whatever, and these are really good detail, just like you'd expect from Fantasy Flight. You know, nice, and I'm going to explain these in fuller detail in a moment, but here, I'll draw 2, and so these are the 2 that I got. I got her, and she's like the assassin character. If you notice, there's some text over here. It tells you what they can do. When she explodes a die, when she is in combat, you get to roll 2 dice instead of 1. I'll explain the explosion here in just a moment. And she also can evade any enemy she lands on, which is really powerful because you can just not fight them. And here we have an Inquisitor, another cool little piece of art. I believe he can move any space that has a threat on it, so a monster that's there. And he adds 2 to his battle when he fights demons. And I think he, you notice down here, there's like, it says a special power, little token, and that's when he gains levels. In Talisman, as you gained trophies, you would increase your stats, and you don't do that in Relic. It's a big difference in the game. You actually have a level track up here, and as you gain levels, you gain the rewards from each level that you gain. And sometimes, like, they're really basic, like you just get stats. Like if you look at the top, you can see there's those red and yellow tokens there, and it's telling you to increase those stats, the strength and cunning of the character. But with the Inquisitor, you can see in the second row there's a bunch of different tokens, and one of those tokens actually coincides with the token that's right there. And it tells you that when you gain that level, you can choose one of your corruption cards and you can discard it. Corruption is a part of the game I'll explain here in just a moment. So I'm just going to play the assassin because I like being able to evade enemies. And so what I do is then I grab, and this is ingenious. Why isn't this in Talisman? This one of these little bars like that, and you look at the starting stats for the person underneath there, and I can see that the assassin starts with the strength of 2. It has a willpower of 3, and she has a cunning of 5. So we'll go ahead and put those stats on there, and she starts with life of 4, I should say, as well. And so you look, you just set those bars up. like that. Bam, done, right? You don't have to worry about collecting these little cones and knocking them over or anything like that. And plus, they max out at 12. After they get to 12, they can't go any higher. So you can't, like when you're playing Talisman, and you have that one guy who just sits there and keeps killing things and killing things and killing things, and has like a strength of 27, and you're just like, just finish the game already. No, you max out at 12. So then you also take this little token here, and you just place it right there on your board. And when the character card slides into the spot, it matches up with the levels, and then you just, as you gain levels, you just move it down, move the peg down. So you get a level, you go to there, and it shows you're level 1, and so on and so forth. And levels max out too. You can't just keep gaining level after level after level. So pretty cool, huh? All right. So also, to gain levels, you just turn in 6 points worth of stuff that you kill. It isn't like you have to collect X of this, X of that. You can only, if you collect 7 cunning, you get to increase your cunning by 1, and 7 strength increases strength by 1, or what have you. It's just 6 total points, you gain a level. So let's just let's put the last person down here. Find my assassin. There she is. And where did the assassin start? The character sheet says I start in the Darkened Glade. So Darkened Glade is right down there. So we'll go ahead and place her down there. Now there's a couple other things that is on the card. You can see up here on the top it says power limit, and it says here it's 2 and 3 and it increases. Now power limit tells you how many power cards you get at the start of the game. Now power cards are another new addition to the game, and these are your power cards. And they're these little tiny cards that I hate, but fine, whatever. And so we take 2 of these, and each power card will have a number like that. See those little numbers in there? A 5 and a 2. And they also have an ability written underneath them. And so on the 2 it says Furious Assault. If you play at the start of a strength battle, you double your strength until the end of the battle. And Ambush, you play at the start of the battle as the active player, and the enemy can't roll a die. And so they have these special powers. Now, you can turn these power cards in for the text that's listed below, or you can turn them in instead of a dice roll. You can turn them in for a skill check, a combat roll, or a movement. So if I really wanted to go 2 spaces, you could turn this in before you roll the die, and you could just go 2 spaces. If I really wanted to when you do combat, the enemy rolls first. So the player who's taking control of the enemy rolls first. And so with this 5, say you were fighting something that had equal strength to you, and they rolled a 4. If you just wanted to be able to beat them, you could just say, I'm going to play this card as a 5. Bam, done. It's killed. And you can get power cards when you gain levels or when you complete missions and things like that, which segues perfectly into missions. Now, missions are these cards. Everybody gets 1 to start off the game. And this will have, on the one side, just have that logo on the back. On the other side, they have text there, and it tells you what your mission is. And there's a lot of different missions. This one says, resolve the Bombard ability on the Fortress World Comarax base, and then there's a reward of, I get to take another turn immediately after that turn is over. I just dropped that card. So, now you find that spot on the board, and the Fortress World Comarax base is right there. Once you get your character there, you take the action, you turn the mission, you get the reward that's listed there. So I take another turn immediately. But you keep this mission, and you put it face down in front of you. As soon as and then you draw another mission card. As soon as you complete 3 missions, you can turn them in for a relic. Now, the name of the game is Relic. If you play Talisman, you know the only way you can win the game is if you can get to the middle. And you can't get in the middle until you have a talisman. So if some of you out there are guessing that you need a relic to be able to get in the middle, you're absolutely correct. So relics are just items, and there's a big item deck like this, and you just draw one off the top, and you look and see, and it says here that this is the Magna Mystica, It increases your power limit by 2, and you immediately get 2 more power cards, which is really powerful. Because your power limit is never really that high, and having a bunch of those power cards at your disposal is great. Now, there's also other stuff in here, like you have these like cool weapons that'll give you both bonuses to both attacks and skill checks for strength. There's one of those for each one of the abilities. There's stuff that like increases your starting life value and gives you more life points, things like that. And so there's a wide variety of relics, and you might end up, if you complete a lot of missions, you might end up with 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever of those, and that's never a bad thing, because you can lose them, especially when you get in the middle. You can end up losing them as well. So let me just clear these people off since we didn't take them. I'll put those over there. Just clear this off as well. And now the actual gameplay of playing the game of Relic, you're probably going to be very familiar with. Let's put this guy back there. So whoever's first player takes a die, they roll it. I got a 3. So I'm playing this character. I can go 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. It's the lair of the Vexagar. It's like if you played a Talisman. These are like the forests. You know, you roll a die, see what happens, kind of thing. I don't want to do that. I want to draw cards. So 1, 2, 3 shows me that this is the Eldar Falcon Squadron. And on the bottom here, you see that there are 2 yellow dots. And so that yellow corresponds with cunning, meaning that most likely the things I'm going to fight in this particular spot are going to be cunning. And as an assassin, I actually have a lot of cunning to start with. I have 5 cunning to start with. So that's actually pretty good for me. I want to be able to go to that spot, and I want to be able to draw those yellow cards. So I go to my yellow deck here, I draw 2 cards, and I see what I get. And in this case, I don't get to fight anything, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to fight something. But you have, as with Talisman, I apologize if you've never played Talisman. I'm like referencing Talisman constantly, but I'm assuming the vast majority of you have. There are encounters that aren't things, and one is a place, and it's just like this forgotten portal that I can take, and it'll transport me somewhere if I choose to take it. And there is a quartermaster, and basically it's a guy who sells stuff. And so since I didn't encounter anything, these were both places that until they're used up, they just go, or until they're destroyed, they go on that spot, and that's that. That's my turn. I really wanted to fight some things so I could maybe improve my guy, but unfortunately I didn't. So we go around. Let's just move some people around, like pretend they went and took turns, and he gets back to me again. So I roll a die. Now I'm going 4. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's go over here. And even though it's a blue card, let's take my chances. Let's see what we go. Well, once again, it's a place. It's just, it's a stranger. It's somebody, the Sister Hospitalier. She'll heal me. I'm not hurt yet, so that's no good. You know what? I'm just going to pretend it's my turn again, for lack of an argument, just so I can show you this. Hope I get something to fight. There we go. I got something to fight. And you'll notice, as with you would see in lots of things, I apologize if it isn't in focus, but there's a number up here, and it's an 8, meaning that is a cunning of 8. Ugh, that's no good. So, and it says here that the enemy battle rolls explodes on a 1 and a 6. It has a little text on the bottom. And it also says that if I win this battle, I get 1 influence. Influence is like gold. If you're playing Talisman, that's just the currency. Influence is the currency of the game. So, my opponent rolls a die, and they roll, and they see what they get. They got a 2. That's good. That means I have a chance of winning, right? So, I have an 8, they have a 10, I have a 5. Now, I could spend my power card that had a 5 on it, I could just tie it, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. But, let's take my chances. I've got a 1 in 6 chance of pulling off a win here. So I roll. Oh, I saw a 6 for like a half a second, but I didn't get it. So I would lose a life, and then I would unfortunately, this creature would go there, and it would show that it's still there, and hope maybe somebody else could land on it, and then they could kill it. Now, for the sake of an argument, let's say they rolled a 1. Remember, their dice explodes on a 1 and a 6. So what that means is you immediately get to roll another die. So they have a 9 now. 8 plus 1 is 9. And I roll again for them. That's a 6. So then they'd have a 15. But let's just, once again, I know I'm fudging here a little bit, but I'm going to say like that roll was a 2. So they have an 11. Now normally I got no shot. I got 5. But if I rolled, and I rolled a 6, and I have my dice explode, I'm at an 11. And because of my assassin special ability, my next 2 cards, I get to roll 2 dice for my explosion, which wasn't that good of a roll. It was only 3. But it was enough to beat them. Because I would have 6 plus 3 is 9, plus my starting value of 5 is 14, and I got, for them, I got an 11. So I would take this as a trophy. I would get my 1 influence, which is just these little chits right here, the little cardboard chits. And because this guy's worth 8, I can immediately turn him in, because he's 6 points, and I would get a level. The 2 points that it's extra would be gone. I wouldn't get those. But it's much better to gain the level right away than to wait, because levels are awesome in the game. That's the main way you gain power. The game continues on from there, and you just experience all these spots on the board. And the board slowly starts getting more and more cluttered with things, and you kill things, and you get stuff. And eventually, you have to head into the middle. Now, I didn't show you this right away at the beginning, but there are these cards that are the endings, and I'm sure when they come with expansions there'll be more and more endings. Endings can be cool little like chaos factories like this, or they could be this big giant demon that's waiting to kill you, or it could just be this big giant great beyond portal, and if you just get there first, you're the winner of the game. So if that was the ending, you just place that in the middle. You get to the middle, and these are just successive tests. They get tougher and tougher as you go along. They'll test every single one of your stats. They'll also just kind of test your luck a lot too. Like this particular spot, you draw corruption cards, and I'll explain those in just a moment, like I said I would. In this particular spot, you roll a die, and you just lose a certain number of lives. When you get here, you have to discard relics, discard an asset. An asset is anything that you just have, whether it's just an ally or a weapon. It's just something. It's an item, or it's something that you carry with you. In Talisman, like followers were one thing, and gold was one thing, and weapons were one thing, and so in this game, they've just combined everything. They've combined just everything that's carried by you or carried with you as an asset. Influence tokens are separate, and then each character has an asset limit and the amount of stuff that they can have. So after you get that, you roll the dice and you see what happens there. You go here and you have to test your cunning. Now when you do a skill test, you're once again you have a number that you're shooting for. In this case, like cunning, it's testing cunning of 14. You just roll a die and add that to your stat, and you try to get that number better. And then you test your willpower, then you test your strength, and finally you get to the Maze of Zinch, which is you test 13 using your level instead of an attribute, and then if you fail, you have to discard all your power cards, and you have to keep trying until you eventually get high enough roll and you get to go into the middle, and then you can win the game. It should be noted that unless the roll is an attack or a skill or a move, you can't use the power card for a Maze of Zinch. You can't just wait until you get there and then I'm going to roll a 6 and then I'm going to win the game. So, but once you get in the middle, if you're the first person in this particular ending, you would just win the game. You're the first person there, so it's kind of a race. If it was, in the case of the big demon guy in the middle, you'd have to fight him and defeat him a certain number of times before you're the winner. In the case of like the Chaos Factory, you add every time you go up there and you roll a die, and you can burn up your assets and burn up items and stuff like that to add tokens, your own personal player tokens to that particular spot on the board. And player tokens are just these. They're these little skulls that have a color to them. And then if you add those to it, eventually if you get a 13 or higher, rolling a die and adding those your tokens, and also what level of power the Chaos Factory has gotten to, the first person to get a 13 or higher on their roll wins that. And that's how that works. So, it's just I hope they come up with more of these. You know, I guess these are kind of cool and all, but none of them really grabbed me as far as a really good ending. But then again, in all honesty, none of the really endings of Talisman always seem like kind of a letdown, other than like something really exciting. So, but there you go. And I mean, like I said, if you've played Talisman, this isn't going to come as a big surprise to you. The only things I didn't show you, as I said, the corruption cards, I didn't really show you the equipment deck. There isn't like a bunch of different equipment. This is the equipment deck, and it's called Battle Gear. Battle Gear can be like guns like this that add 3 to your combat and strength. They can be like a grenade that has a special ability. The one interesting thing about weapons is that they will have a certain number of charges. And it might be tough for you to see this, and I do apologize for that. But up in the top, like this gun says it has 2 charges. And so you'll take 2 of these tokens with these little lightning bolts on them. I'll show this to you. And you just place that on the card, and then you decide when you spend them, you take one of those charge tokens off, and you gain the benefit that the weapon gives you. Once the benefit's gone, obviously you can't spend any more charges. And you can, at certain spaces and certain encounters, you can replenish the charges that are on your weapon. And not all weapons are like that. Some weapons are like melee weapons, and they just add the ability as well. You don't ever run out of charges. Now the final thing I was going to tell you about, before I tell you about the game and what I think, is corruption cards, which are these cards here. And when something happens in the game that corrupts you, if you've played Warhammer or Warhammer 40k, you know, like the idea is that the world is awash in chaos, and chaos is like always, you know, destroying and corrupting the world or whatever. And so when your characters run into the corrupting ability of chaos, something bad can happen to them. And so what happens is you draw one of these cards, and when you get corrupted, it can be something both bad or good, and depending on, well, just once again, your luck. And so, like in this case, you draw this one, and off the top of the board card, and you'll see it says weakened body, and it says you can't wear armor, and it says 3. Now the 3 means that if you have, counting this card that you just drew, 3 or more corruption cards, this particular corruption actually takes effect and hurts you, or, you know, and this, you know, because it's something that's bad, and you put it face up on by your character. If you have less than 3 counting this card, you turn it face down and you place it on your character, meaning that you're corrupted, but you haven't been affected by it. So sometimes you'll draw like one that has a 1 on it, like this, and it says stupor, and it just means that you in this case, that you just lose 1 cunning when you draw this. So that stinks, you know, if you lose. And of course, since it's a 1, even if it's first card, you leave that face up. I'll find one that's good, so you know that they're not always bad. Here, let's see one here. Oh, there we go. Like this one. It's 5 corruption, if you notice there up in the top. And it's invisibility, meaning that you can now evade enemies. Just like the power the assassin has, you just get this ability, and now you can evade enemies. Now, but it's 5 corruption. Now, what does that mean? Well, this game is different in the fact that if you run out of lives, you aren't killed. In Talisman, you run out of lives, you're done. Draw another character, and, you know, move on. However, in this game, you aren't killed. You are what's called vanquished. And when you're vanquished, it isn't even really all that bad. And that's kind of one of the things that I have a problem with this game. If you're vanquished, you just discard all of your power cards, which does stink. Trophies, which are like the enemy cards that you've collected but you haven't turned in yet for your levels. And, you know, if you have 6, you probably would have turned them in anyway. So what's the big deal as far as that's concerned? And influence, which, you know, can hurt because money's always nice to have in the game. But then you are just moved to the St. Antius Sanctuary, which is here, and you just start up again. You don't lose a turn. You just, when your next turn comes, you're just there and you're okay, and you return your life to your starting value, and you go about your way. You don't lose any of your items. You don't lose any of your assets. You don't lose any of your relics. Nothing. And so that kind of stinks. However, you can be killed and removed from the game and get a new character if you get 6 corruption cards. Sometimes you can get other items or things like that that will allow you to have more before you become corrupted. And there are places on the board and encounters that actually can remove corruption from you. And so like up in the middle tier, there's places where you can go and basically pray, if you will, and then you get to remove corruption possibly. So corruption can actually be really dangerous, especially since there's a spot in the middle of the board where if you roll a 1, you draw like 3 corruption cards. So if you have 3 and you draw 1, I'm dead, I'm done. Which of course, why would you risk it if you went there? But maybe you have to if you're going to have any chance of winning the game. But yeah, there you go. I mean, Talisman's never been a really tough game to teach or to learn. It's just a tough game to convince you and your friends to play if you've had some bad experience with it, because it is basically a roll and move game. But heck, I mean, I've played Talisman, rough estimate, maybe a couple hundred times, and I really dug this version of it. But all right, well, let me tell you exactly why I dig this version of it. Alrighty. Hopefully you made it through that gameplay. That lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would. Talisman is not a difficult game to teach or show, but that lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would. But it's me, so I guess you should expect it, right? So, alright. So, intro. Told you why I liked it. I touched on a few things I thought that were really cool in the gameplay, and now I'm going to just expand on that right now. When my buddy David Ingberg bought Talisman back in high school, I believe, and we bought it at a place called Hobby Hut in Moorhead, Minnesota, and we brought it home and we busted out and played it one afternoon when we didn't have enough people to play D&D. And me and him, my buddy Jeff Roberts, and my buddy Donald Brodale, and I think Brandon Bulbright, I believe, was there as well. Yeah, names from my past. Maybe if they watch this video, they'll go, "Hey, that's kind of cool." But we sat down and we played this, and we played Talisman, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, we did think that the prophetess was way too overpowered, and she immediately was banned from all future games. But we had a great time playing the game, and it became a staple. And I still have that copy, or one of my friends still has that copy somewhere. And we have busted it out occasionally just for old time's sake, if you will. Talisman had a lot of issues with it, though. I mean, it had that kind of perpetual game last forever type thing going on. When Fantasy Flight, well, actually not Fantasy Flight, when Black Box Industries reinvented Talisman and came out with it again, they made some changes that were very good. You were able to actually increase your craft score by killing spirits, which we had incorporated in the game as a home rule anyway, and I think everybody had, honestly, at that point. And they incorporated that rule, and they incorporated some other things and changed stuff up. And, and the game was still Talisman at heart, but they made the necessary changes to make the game a little more friendly, if you will. But the main core problems of Talisman still existed. The game lasts way too long for what it is. If a couple people just want to completely mess with the game and screw things up and just mess with other players and stuff like that, they can make the game unfun for everybody else sitting at the table. And and it's one of those things that it makes the game. The game should last like maybe an hour and a half total, but Talisman has that ability to last like 3 hours or more, and you're just like it becomes a death march, if you will, towards the end. So when this came out, like I said, I had reservations about playing it. I had reservations about getting it. I did get it, and I started playing it, and it really solves a lot of the problems. For starters, and they're supposedly going to fix this, or not fix it, I will, but add this in later expansions. You really can't interact with the other players. And I know a lot of you hardcore Talisman players are going to be like, "What? I can't kill other players? There's no PvP?" I admit, I miss it to a certain degree. Certain characters can mess with them. There's a character like the thief. You can land on other people, and like you can give them one of your one of your influence tokens. You can just take one of their items. Certain missions will allow you to mess with other people and take power cards and stuff like that. So it isn't completely out of the game, but it isn't one of those things where if I just happen to be lucky enough to land on you, I get to kill you. That doesn't exist in the game. But it takes away that interaction level of the game, but it also takes away that interaction level of the game. It's the people then are able to focus on improving themselves, and they don't have to worry about somebody just stumbling around and taking away the rune sword or whatever and ruining the game for them. It doesn't have spells, and spells were like that one thing in Talisman that none of them were really all that powerful, but that person who could cast a spell because they had the wand or something like that, I cast this spell, and I cast this spell, and I cast this spell. I mean, it doesn't have that perpetual annoyance going on in the background. The fact that you only need 6 points, I can count 6 points to just gain a level and increase your power, much better. Meaning that you wasn't like, come on, I just need something with strength 2. Why can't I find something? You don't have that problem with the game. It's just get 6, just get 6. And the fact that you level up quickly is one of the things that before it would take forever to get going, and it's just, so this is just a very sped up, straight line version of Talisman that I just adore. And even the small things like the character busts like this. I mean, one of the things these are huge and they're just nice looking, and I bet they look awesome painted. I won't paint them because I'll screw them up. But one of the things that annoys me about Talisman is the fact that earlier versions of 4th edition Talisman, the miniatures are of a different scale as later because of whatever reason, just costs for miniatures or whatever. And that always really bugged me, because you'd have these miniatures of different sizes, and plus these just they're big and they're huge and they allow for a lot of high detail and stuff like that. And who cares if you don't have feet underneath them or whatever? They still look really awesome. And honestly, if you had a full figure of this size, admittedly they wouldn't be this size. I mean, they'd be that tall, and they'd fall over and be unwieldy at best. I can honestly say the theme really doesn't do too much for me. It just, in a way, actually, I guess it kind of reminds me of Timescape, that old expansion that was the frickin' worst for the old Talisman. So, I mean, it's one of those things that doesn't exactly appeal to me. But, I don't mind it. I mean, I don't hate it, so it's not gonna ruin the game for me. I guess it's one of those things where everything they did with it, they just made the game a little more simple. Now, I know there's going to be a few people out there that are hardcore Talisman people that are going to say, I liked it the way it was. And you know what? I do like it the way it was. And I'll still bust out Talisman. I'll bust out my old version, my buddy Dave Ingberg's old version of Talisman. We'll play it every once in a while, just to reminisce, if you will. But this is a better game. and honestly, if anybody from Fantasy Flight happens to watch this, I mean, what's it going to take for you just to say, cut your ties to the 4th edition of Talisman and just upgrade that to this version of it? I would love to play a rule set like this modified Talisman rule set, but play it in the fantasy realm of Talisman. Instead of a Warhammer 40k universe. It would take it that extra little notch. So yeah, have the guts, say, we know you really like 4th edition, but we're discontinuing it, and now we're going to move on. You did it with Descent, and the new Descent rules, and you know it does. So, yeah. let's move on and bring Talisman up to speed, and bring it to this level. That's my plea, if you will. And I think that'd be awesome if they did. So, I wasn't sure if I was going to get it or not. I eventually got it on a whim, and now I am pleased as punch that I own Relic, the Warhammer 40k version of Talisman. So, there you go. If you have any questions or concerns or ideas or what have you, or you can tell me, I love Talisman and you suck for saying that this is better. Hey, maybe I do, but, you know, let's have a spirited debate over that, if you will. And then maybe we can come to a consensus at some point. But until that time that we have that wonderful discussion, I thank you very much for watching this video. And until the next one, this is Undead Viking telling you to have an awesome day. All right. Bye-bye now.